Hello everyone, we go to chapter 15 of the book of Revelation. The first verse we read, "And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God." This chapter begins the same as chapter 12, with a sign in heaven. It is a great and marvelous sign, implying that it is more impressive than the other signs so far. It follows all the supernatural warnings that we find in chapter 14, and it marks the beginning of that great harvest which is spoken there. And that becomes clear from the last part of this first verse. It says the wrath of God is being completed with these. And it comes in 7 plagues that we will get to know as the bowl judgments in verse 7 and later on in chapter 16. Moreover, it is said that these are the last plagues. After this, the current age has ended and no more plagues will follow. In Greek, it says for complete etelesti, and that implies a reaching of an end or an accomplishment. These last plagues will fulfill God's eternal purpose. We continue then to read in verses 2 through 4. "And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast and over his image and over his mark and over the number of his name stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of the saints. Who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name? For thou only art holy. For all nations shall come and worship before thee, for thy judgments are made manifest." Those that have gotten victory over the beast are standing on the sea. We must conclude that these are tribulation saints, since the tribulation period is not yet over. And after all, the 7 bowl judgments have not yet been poured out. Although they are martyrs, they are victors too. As stated in chapter 14, verse 13, where it says, "Blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth." They are having the harps of God, it says. We've seen this also in the previous chapter. And as mentioned there, it might, in addition to all those that have gotten victory, refer to the elders. See Revelation 5, verse 8. This time, they don't sing a song that no man could learn, but they sing the song of Moses. We've discussed this also in chapter 11, verses 3 through 6. It is the oldest song known to man. And as we read here in verse 2, the victory is over the beast. That is singular. It refers to the Antichrist, the rider of the white horse. Oddly enough, Moses also sings in singular about the horse and his rider in Exodus 15, verse 1, making it a very prophetic song. He even says there, "I will sing." Just like the Egyptians back then were overthrown by the waters of the Red Sea, while the children of Israel could walk through the sea as on dry land, now those that have gotten victory stand on the sea. The sea before the throne of God is not an obstacle, even though it is mingled with fire. The victors stand upon it. Another link to the Exodus is that the sea is mingled with fire. That would make it red and allude to the Red Sea. In Exodus 15 verse 2, Moses sings, "He is become my salvation." That is, in Hebrew, He is become my Yeshua. By the blood of the Lamb and His testimony have they overcome. That is by no doubt the reason why this song is also called the Song of the Lamb in verse 3. It is a song of praise, and it is all and only focused on the Lord. Notice in verse 3 and 4, it says, "Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty, just and true are thy ways, King of saints. Who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name? For thou only art holy. For all nations shall come and worship before thee, for thy judgments are made manifest." 7 times we find a pronoun to refer to God. There is one thou between brackets in front of King of the Saints. That word is not in the original text. We have 7 times this reference, which is very fitting in the book of Sevens, the book of Revelation. It is all about Him, as true worship should be. Exodus 15 verse 17 speaks about the mountain of the Lord and the sanctuary that He has made. It is Mount Zion and the temple. All far future from Moses' perspective, but now, here in Revelation, fulfilled. And even in Revelation 15 verse 5 we see the heavenly temple. And then in Exodus 15 verse 18 Moses sings, "The Lord shall reign forever and ever." Indeed, when the tribulation period comes to an end, our King of Kings will reign forever and ever. As there is victory and praise in heaven, the time has come for God to pour out His wrath, unmixed. 7 angels appear, and they are coming out of the heavenly temple, or tabernacle, clothed in white linen and having golden girdles. In verses 5 and 6 we read, "And after that I looked, and behold, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven was opened, and the 7 angels came out of the temple, having the 7 plagues, clothed in pure and white linen, and having their breasts girded with golden girdles." It cannot but remind us of the priests coming out of the temple. They were too dressed in white linen, albeit with red girdles, symbol of the atoning blood, or with white, signifying purity. However, the gold here shows holiness and the imperishable or everlasting righteousness. See for this our study on the priestly garments. Ironically, while all this takes place, the beast is defiling the earthly temple. And it should remind us that the earthly temple is but a shadow of the heavenly, as we can read in Hebrews 8 verse 5, "Who serve unto the example and shadow of heavenly things, as Moses was admonished of God when he was about to make the tabernacle." Just as the earthly priests serve God, the angels do so. They do not act on their own authority, it is God's wrath. Verses 7 and 8, Revelation 15, we read, "And one of the 4 beasts gave unto the 7 angels 7 golden vials, full of the wrath of God, who liveth for ever and ever. And the temple was filled with smoke, from the glory of God and from His power, and no man was able to enter into the temple until the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were fulfilled." The contrast with the first part of this chapter could not be greater. Those that have gotten victory are praising God in front of His throne, while those on earth curse His name and are on the brink of receiving His wrath in full. The bowls are shallow pans that were in use in the temple, for example, to carry fire for burning the incense. And the fact that they are shallow makes the contents to be easily poured out in one go. And once poured out, there is no way to stop it. It becomes more clear that these judgments are irreversible. The temple was filled with smoke, we read. Smoke from the glory of God, and therefore no one could enter, just as it was in the earthly tabernacle. In Exodus 40, verse 34-35 we read, "Then a cloud covered the tent of the congregation, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And Moses was not able to enter into the tent of the congregation, because the cloud abode thereon, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle." And as is written, no one will be able to enter until the 7 plagues have been fulfilled. Thus, it has to commence, and it has to happen in a quick succession.